Hi, I'm Brian Vines. Welcome to the ZerMed Show. On the show, we will feature local community physicians who are experts in their respective fields and who will share their experiences and wisdom. We cover a broad range of health topics on the show, and today we'll discuss infectious disease, among other things, with Dr. Conrad Fischer, who's a full professor of medicine at Thoreau College of Medicine. He is also board certified in internal medicine and infectious disease, and also practices palliative care. Dr. Fischer is the residency program director and vice chair of internal medicine at Brookdale Hospital Medical Center in Brooklyn. Dr. Fischer, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Brian.
We appreciate you spending some time with us today, and I'd just like to know right from the top, balancing just two of those jobs that I just mentioned, is there a typical day in the life of Dr. Fischer?
Well, don't a lot of us take our sense of identity of ourselves from the busyness and all the things that we can get done?
Yeah.
So it depends at what time of the year it is, but we'll start with going to see patients and go room to room to room on the hospital floors, making sure everything is right and safe, double checking the work of the residents. Then I often go and do a class or two a day. For instance, I just came from finishing doing a class with medical students on what is the latest practices in stroke management, and the things that you have to do. We've never been able to heal more, cure more, relieve suffering more. We now, for a stroke, crawl right up into your brain with a catheter and snatch the clot out.
All right.
It's like taking the lame man and saying, walk, your faith has
Future
made
is
you
now.
whole. That's right.
Yeah, that's genius. So all of those developments, and there's also a new landmark in health on the horizon here in Brooklyn in the form of One Brooklyn Health.
Yes. So there had been so many hospitals that closed in New York City over the last 10 years. And the state government had become committed to doing everything that could happen to make sure healthcare was intact in Brooklyn. And so the formation of One Brooklyn Health is like being present at the birth of a new life form, a new baby, but comes out at about age 18, already fully mature. And there are things that are possible in this 3-hospital system that weren't with an individual hospital before because of costs and spacing. For instance, the stroke removal that I talked about, that if you have the signs of weakness and numbness, well, all the stroke removals happen at the Brookdale campus. The Interfaith campus has a lot of psychiatric care. The Kingsbrook campus has a lot of rehabilitation medicine. So this is something that hadn't existed before in Brooklyn. Now, this system has a catchment area, meaning the number of patients we serve.
Right.
So the joke I tell people is it true that One Brooklyn Health has a catchment area equal to the entire city of Washington?
Yeah.
And I go, it's not true. It's Washington D.C. and Boston combined.
Wow.
So I think that there's a lot of optimism in the air about what can be done and what can be made with all these new possibilities.
So looking at that landscape of care between that trifecta of amazing institutions that have joined forces, I wonder if you could give us a sort of overview of this concept of a safety net hospital and what that meant historically and how you see that manifesting now.
Yes, safety net hospital. How would you translate that for the average person? A place that is too poor to really be self-sustaining based on billings. And we are very grateful, indispensably grateful, for the partners at all levels of government that even though this is a private hospital, have said, well, you know, healthcare is a right, and we need to make sure that people have the ability to have access. So for instance, when I went to have one of my knees replaced at a very nice place in Manhattan, and I have really good insurance, I still had to put out $5,000 out of my pocket for the visits and for the procedure. Now, that hospital had the ability to reject me at the door if I didn't have the right insurance, to reject me if I'm not going to pay, or I have an inability to pay. And at all levels, they're able to cherry pick who comes in. But at One Brooklyn Health, we believe that, as it said, whatever is done to the least of these my brethren is done unto me. That it's how you treat the person who is at the bottom end, so to speak, socioeconomically, of a society, that you lift people up. Every society has always had the top 1% that gets its ass kicked, but, sorry, gets its ass kissed.
Yeah.
But here it is, when we're here trying to take first-class doctors who have purposely chosen, first-class professionals who have purposely chosen to come to Central Brooklyn to do the right thing in this environment. There's something especially sacred and holy about that I deeply appreciate.
Can you speak to a second to those doctors? You're here training them in one instance, you're at another place getting them ready in the classroom with the knowledge, and then there's practicum here. But I wonder if you could talk about the fact that there's no second string folks. This is not a lesser caliber of physicians that are here. These are people who are making a concerted effort to be of service. Is there a profile of that kind of doctor who would make that kind of decision to come and be of service in the community?
Yes, so I am in charge of recruitment for the largest segment, although we have dental residents, surgical residents, pediatric residents, emergency medicine.
Entire community of care.
Yes. And very few people will come out of places like NYU, Cornell, and Columbia to come down to an impoverished and sometimes frightening to some neighborhood such as we work in. And so for all of people's rhetoric, people vote with their feet. And so therefore, in America, 30% of people who apply to medical school get in. But when you also look internationally and you look at places where the acceptance rate to medical school is about 3%, what you're doing is you're getting really an exalted level of drive, ability, measurability, and there is, it's not that the program is all international, not at all.
Yeah.
It is really that, just like Brooklyn, it's a hungry experience of people who are, what does it say in Hamilton? Another immigrant climbing up from the bottom,
right.
You know? And so that sort of drive that people have to spend years to prepare to come to Brooklyn. And so I'm very happy to say that we are able to collect some of the best minds and certainly most energetic people from around America and from around the world who come here.
So what are they coming to? If we look at that big three that have all joined together to make that catchment area that's bigger than some of the biggest East Coast cities that we have here, what kind of level of care can Brooklynites look forward to now?
Well, when I left my training, I was at the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in Manhattan, and I said, I'm going to go to East New York. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to Blake Avenue, work in the Betty Shabazz Center, because I originally started as a full-time HIV doctor. Mm-hmm. The gentleman was the president of the Infectious Disease Society of America. He was a very prominent guy,
yeah,
and he thought I had lost my mind.
Well, because you're at the mountaintop. That's where everyone in the world in schools is aspiring to be, at Sloan Kettering, like that, the place.
Yeah, it looked like a parent who goes like this, where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Not enough after school? So, but as they say, this above all, to thine own self be true.
Yeah.
And it seemed really the right thing to do, because I wanted to feel that it was, that when we get to the end of our lives, it is not how much we were paid, it's how much we feel valued. Some people can be paid very highly, but they don't feel valued. That's why suicide rates don't bottom out in rich people.
Yeah.
So I have the blessing of coming to a hospital center and having a group of people that I work with across the departments across nursing, respiratory therapy, and food service. And
Yeah.
they feel valued. And I would like to feel that we're bringing that sense to other people, that when they come here, that they can feel they can make a difference. And I don't just mean to make a difference, I mean criminals can make a difference.
Yeah.
Not a good one, but they're making a difference. But we have certain sacred principles: the right to freedom from fear, the right to health care, the right to safety. And many of the people who come here to work here, just as 38% of people who live in Brooklyn were born outside the United States, 54% speak a language other than English at home.
Yeah.
When you take that teeming swell of tumultuous humanity and bring it together for a common purpose,
Yeah.
there is an objective beauty and
Yeah.
sacredness in that experience that I like. Walt Whitman says, "I do not ask any more delight. I swim in it as in the sea."
So we were swimming in a lot of stuff for the last almost 2 years now, and so much was made of the healthcare inequities that the pandemic exposed. And a lot of people around the world learned what I suspect you've known for a very long time about the level of care that comes to communities that aren't on the higher end of the socioeconomic scale. So I wonder what lessons Brookdale and the community here could share with the world that became so evident during the pandemic.
That's a really good question. And one, you learn a certain self-reliance, that it's true that people did not get a plane load of flown in nurses and doctors as some of the more wealthy hospitals had. I would say that people's level of commitment was all in, and people really put their lives on the line. We had department chairs who died of COVID. We had a physician that was on a ventilator for 9 months, still has the hole from the tracheostomy in his neck. And so in terms of COVID though, yes, certain places may have had more resources. However, I don't know how much it changed overall the outcomes, because if you divide the United States up into counties,
Yes.
each state having many counties, there are 3,006 counties, and I sound like I've always known that. I only learned it last week. And of the top 4 counties in terms of death rate,
Right.
4 out of the top 5 death rates were in the city of New York. Where they're standing right now
Yeah.
was the #1 death rate in the city of New York, and therefore the second highest death rate of any county in the country.
Yeah.
But so is the Bronx, the Queens, and Manhattan as well. So what we learned here is the value of human life, that each life is precious and none can be replaced, that people do step up. I don't feel it as much as I used to, but when the first COVID cases, you really did feel like you felt like you're putting your life at risk
Right.
when you go in that door.
Just to do your job.
What I hope that we'll remember from that experience is how important every human being is, and that when people are at risk of death, then every man and woman is our brother and sister. And that's what I hope. I hope we'll take away how much we missed each other when we were in social isolation, how much we missed each other when everything is over Zoom, and that at the end of this, that we'll be a more unified civilization because we felt that type of connection. So I may sound like a poetical and theological guy, but I am a theological guy.
I know that you happen to have a degree in theology. How does that come into play? Do your patients get all of this when you're making your rounds?
Oh, I was sent, man, you know? So medicine is a outpouring, a product of feeling that grace is like invisible rain that comes down, and that we do have a duty, a categorical imperative to show love to other men and women, and that each of those people who are in our building at One Brooklyn Health is a precious soul that we have to rescue, to save. And you can't tell who 1 minute you're saving and the next minute they're going to save you.
Yeah.
So under COVID, it was brutally difficult and frightening for people. But I don't, when some people said, well, you know, the death rate is so high because it's the neighborhood. And I go, well, we have a cardiac catheterization laboratory where you do open up hearts when you have heart attacks.
Yeah.
That has the lowest mortality, highest safety rate in the state of New York. Are we cathing Swedes? So it has to be something else. So we have to leave it as a question. Why was the death rate so terrible here?
How much closer are we to answering that question? Like, we don't have the blessing of perspective from very far, but we have been able to take a breath. But has anything emerged in your eyes? Because people talk about this all day long, and I don't know that I've heard a concrete answer, but I would love to add your voice to that dialogue.
I think it is best to have the discipline to say that we're not sure.
Gotcha.
It is better to do that than to reach a false conclusion. And it needs to be looked at more. But that's what I said. You know, look, if you had a stroke right now,
Yeah.
the ambulance service is not supposed to bring you to a hospital that's not a designated stroke center, where they can do this catheter retrieval.
Right.
We have seen people come in here paralyzed and walk out the building.
Yeah.
There are many hospitals in New York and in Brooklyn, but Woodhull doesn't have a stroke center. Wyckoff doesn't have a stroke center. This place and that place and this place and that place doesn't have a stroke center, and Brookdale does. And you can only do that because you're delivering something first class. So I'd say the argument to me that when it says that it's the neighborhood,
Right.
I reject this. Because if we can do well at stroke, if we can do A++
Right.
at cardiac catheterization, if we can send up right now, you can dial a number and get monoclonal antibodies at our Kingsbrook campus, infusions of monoclonal antibodies that will markedly lower your risk of death. Because in the study, the arm that had placebo had 10 deaths, and the arm that had the monoclonal antibodies had no deaths. So this is something that we can do. You can call this hospital, go to Kingsbrook, and in that emergency room, be out in a short period of time, and that's done well and expertly. So we have to say for the rest of these things, we're not sure, and I think that it's better than drawing a premature conclusion and not reaching truth.
Well, that's the difference that the One Brooklyn Health brand, moniker, mission is making in the community right now. So I'm wondering, as we look at this continuum of where we were to where we are, from monoclonal antibodies to just people who are being diagnosed and getting positive
Well, if
COVID
you could say that
tests.
word right the first time, it would be very bad for me. Because if you can get it off the pop, then who would need me? Then you wouldn't need me.
That's all you
and,
got.
then who am I going to be if they don't need me? If you could be me, I'll have to be somebody else.
It's all in the edits. So if we are looking at where we were to where we are right now, where are we in this journey towards being made whole again after the initial onset of COVID-19?
It's a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
It is brutally painful to watch people struggling for their lives because they did not get vaccinated. It's excruciating. Because 95 to 98%, sometimes 99%
Yeah.
of the people who go to an intensive care unit who die did not get
Unvaccinated.
vaccinated. And I understand people get nervous, but I hear all sorts of things. Hey doc, I heard there's a computer chip in that. I go, well, you should get that one then. It'll save you money on cell phone service. So I heard the other guy goes, I heard it made certain body parts drop off. No. And my favorite was this. Hey doc, I saw that movie with Will Smith. That's the one where everybody gets vaccinated and it turns us all into zombies.
Yeah.
But what do you do when people are doing self-destructive things? The way I think of it is that we are all self-destructive in some way. We're all suicides until somebody saves us. And so our duty is to try to do the best we can to reach people, to reassure people, and to tell people it's safe. But there's anxiety about it. So that's really unfortunate that I wish that the vaccination rate was higher here and safer.
Yeah.
But that's why we're here together, isn't it?
How do you win that argument, though? This is something like I've been keyboard gangstering with people on face pages, Instagram, like who are telling me about Nicki Minaj's cousin and all of these things from Will Smith to that you mentioned. Like, what is the silver bullet argument to say get a life, get vaccinated?
Yeah,
This is the way.
But Doc, that's how DMX died. I'm like, I think he had other issues. No, it was the vaccine.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so, and then I go like this. I would say something like, I just want you not to die. Okay, Brian, don't die.
Yeah.
All right? I don't work on commission. I don't make 50 per vaccination. All right?
Right.
So don't die.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Don't people have other? Look at people smoke cigarettes, and they're all little suicides. But we do the best. That's what we're called to do. We're called to have emotional endurance. So to watch people hurt themselves needs tremendous emotional endurance. And then what do you do when you have a problem and there's pain and you don't want to solve it? You go to your community, your ashram, your ummah, and say, hey, what can we do together? We share between us now and between the community and say, how do we solve this? And the answer is together. Okay? Human beings are not designed to be alone. So I studied the desert monastics of the 3rd and 4th century who stayed out in the desert for years in little caves. And they met up once or twice a week. And the question is, how come they never there's almost no reported suicides. But in New York, there's such a tremendous loneliness.
Yeah.
The answer is they may have been physically alone, but they felt spiritually connected with their community.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're here to do in this organization is to help people feel that there's a group of energetic, talented people who care about them. And maybe some people who are not able to care enough for themselves will do the right thing because they can feel they can come in the door and will care about them.
How much is this new generation of doctors that you're teaching and actively training going to be different than the generation before? Having come of age and lived through this pandemic like no one has ever experienced in our lifetime. How do you think that's changed them fundamentally?
Well, I think that anybody who goes through difficult experiences, it's been studied. There's in the military something called SEER training, where basically you kick people's butts for a couple days and weeks, and it shows that they can survive torture better psychologically. It's been studied at torture victims clinics that those who had deep religious convictions or Buddhists survive torture better because different spiritual approach. So there's no doubt that I think that those people will be, despite the PTSD aspect of it, will be a stronger and more alert for the next disaster. As I said, right, never let a disaster go to waste.
That's right.
So the issue about the next generation of doctors, because I'm now getting to the point where I have people in classes and they go, Dr. Fischer, my mother had you in class.
No way.
Yeah. I'm waiting for first grandmother. Okay. My father had you in class. So the issue is that I did a study about this some years ago because medical students and residents are often told the previous generation was stronger and better.
The
And then we're
greatest generation
the greatest
named down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's some validity to that one in a certain way, but, but the thing is,
Suffering still.
But the thing is that in medicine, the idea is like, oh man, no, we were stronger, we were better,
Right.
we were more devoted, and there's no evidence for it. Now, there is evidence that 90% of medical students and residents get this psychologically from the previous generation. We were better and stronger. I don't think it helps to crap on people's dreams like that. But I think that people, no matter what the perception is, come in year after year believing those letters they write when they want to go into medical school and residency, that they want to help, they want to be of service, which does not mean being a servant, but being of service.
Right.
What they call in Hinduism karma yoga. Right work is a way of spiritual development. What's said in Judaism as tikkun olam, to perfect the world as we're perfecting ourselves, to perfect ourselves as we're perfecting the world, to the statement, I cannot be what I am meant to be until you are what you are meant to be, that we're interconnected. So I think that they come in and I see many of them that at their stage of development were much better than I was at that stage of development.
Really?
Yes, so I'm filled
Is that
with...
an open secret, or do you keep it from them?
I'm filled with optimism.
Yeah.
I am filled with optimism. Besides that, when I was a medical student and a resident, HIV had a 99% death rate.
Yeah.
Now it's 99% survival rate. What'd you do for a heart attack? Almost nothing. Now we have pop that open and you walk out the door the next day. What could you do for a stroke? Neurology, they used to call it diagnose and adios.
Wow.
And now you can snatch the clot out of their head. Cataracts used to be a cause of blindness. Now a cataract is removed in 4 minutes.
Shoot a laser at your face. Yeah.
And a laser makes it so you don't have to wear glasses ever.
No, the evolution has evolved, and you're in the right
Yeah.
seat, and they're the true believers.
Yes, that's right. That's why it's great to be around Brookdale, and One Brooklyn Health has almost 500 residents in training. We have relationships with a half a dozen medical students. Between medical students and residents, we have, I don't know, 600, 700 trainees in this institution, and they're going to come in with that level of enthusiasm to take care of people.
Well, we're going to leave it at that because it's all about taking care of people. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Dr. Fischer.
You're welcome. Delighted to be here.
All right. So thank you for your interest in the show and your desire to become involved and educated. I invite all of you to visit our website at www.zermed.com and check out our tools and connect with us on social media. You can also give us a buzz at 718-510-2103. Thank you. Be safe. Bye.